Thank you, directors. We will resume the open part of today's meeting of the Comox Strathcona Hospital District Board. And I would like to, since this is the start of the recorded part of the meeting, I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, and that the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Service Area includes the Coast Salish, Kawakawak, and Nuu-Chulnith territories. So our first item on the agenda is the adoption of minutes from the December 11th meeting, moved by Grieve, seconded by Nicol. Any questions or comments? Anyone opposed to adoption? That's carried. And we have under reports, the 2026 recommended budget, a report dated February 19th for receipt. A motion, please. Moved by Grant, seconded by Nicol, and over to staff.
Thanks very much, Chair. Good morning to the board. Kelly Broughton, our Manager of Financial Planning, and Lucy Wicharik, our Chief Financial Officer, are at the table, and Kelly will be introducing the recommended financial plan for the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board. Kelly, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, and to the CAO, to the directors. Staff are here to present the 2026 recommended budget for the board's consideration. The preparation of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District's budget is guided by the board-endorsed financial planning policy. As prescribed by the Hospital District Act, regional hospital districts must prepare and adopt a provisional budget prior to the end of December 31st of the previous year and adopt the current year financial plan by March 31st. On December 11th, 2025, the provisional budget as presented was approved by the board. The 2026 recommended budget includes the 2025 year-end results and the capital project and equipment list received from Island Health. This has been incorporated into the financial plan. In addition to the staff report, the completed budget details have been included in the attached appendices. If the board chooses to adopt this financial plan today, the required budget bylaws have been attached to the agenda and can be given 3 readings during the meeting. However, if the board would like more time to consider the budget details in this presentation, a meeting can be scheduled for early March. A meeting is scheduled for March to provide additional time while ensuring we meet the legislative deadlines. The status of the current priorities identified during the board's strategic planning are the long-term care facility, which design work was started during 2024 and will continue into 2026. The recommended budget contains the 2025 unspent approved funding of $1.4 million. This does not include any new funds for this project. Once the design has been finalized and the project advances to the next step, Island Health will return to the board with the updated project details and request for funding. Included in the budget is $120,000 for up to 12 named facility global grants of $10,000 each. At this point, only 6 facilities are considered named, but the remaining $60,000 will be available in the event that the province does name new facilities. The budget does not include any funds for the Community Health Hub. However, staff are continuing discussions with Island Health. Any project updates and potential funding requests from Island Health will be brought back to the board for consideration in the future. Finance staff have not changed the funding strategy of reserves and debt and believe that it continues to be sound and achievable within the current requisition amount. Once more details have been refined for the Health Hub and the long-term care facility, staff will update and reevaluate the strategy. The 2026 recommended budget contains minimal changes from the provisional one presented in December. The 2025 surplus is $2.33 million. Professional fees have been increased by $8,000 for board strategic planning sessions. The Island Health requests for equipment and capital projects funded from the $1.85 million raised through the annual requisition have been allocated per the board policy, and the request from Island Health has been included in the Appendix D. The requisition remains flat at the $12.6 million, or approximately $24.75 per $100,000 of assessed value. The 2025 surplus is $2.339,478. $970,640 in 2025 capital projects are still in project as of still in progress as of December 31st, and the 2025 unspent 60,000 from the grants for named facilities will be carried into 2026. The unallocated surplus of $1,368,838 was derived from 190,000, just over 190,000, and the increase to interest revenue, 40,943, an increase to the grants and lieu revenue received. $82,000 in reduced spending from administrative and other categories included governance expense savings of $33,445, resulting from fewer board meetings. A direct correlation of the reduced board meetings is the travel expenses were less by $10,396. Legal expense budget was $10,000 and no fees were incurred in 2025. $28,287 was budgeted for strategic planning and studies, but was not expended in 2025. The residential tax impact per area. So based on the January 2026 roll values, the requisition of $12.6 million has a tax rate of 0.2475 per $1,000 of assessed value, or 24.75 per 100,000. This is a slight decrease from the 2025 values, which is mostly due to the increased assessed values. The cost to an average residential property will vary from a high of $248 in the electoral area B to a low of $32 in the SRD area A, jurisdiction 784. If averaged across all the municipalities and electoral areas, it's approximately $145 per residential property. The 2026 capital budget. So the details for the in-progress capital projects have been listed on the Appendix F. But we can provide more details if required. Major capital represents the major year-to-date unspent funds for the long-term care facility that was approved in 2024. So this amount of $1,496,651 has been carried forward into 2026. The 2025 carry forward is the unspent 2025 year taxation balance that is funded from the $1.85 million. This will be transferred to the reserve as the 2025 allocated to capital surplus of $910,640. So in total, $6,362,960 is the balance from the unspent funding allocated to Island Health projects and equipment from prior years and is currently held within the reserve. The 2026 reserve. After the 2025 surplus is close to the reserve balance, it will be $32,836,570. $17,950,251 has been allocated to capital projects and unnamed facilities. As detailed on the previous slide, $10,600,000 has been allocated to the capital projects that are either already in progress or planned for the future. Additional, a total of $4.5 million each has been allocated to the health hub and long-term bed construction, and an additional $180,000 has been previously made available to the current unnamed facilities. Although $9 million has been allocated to the long-term care facility and the health hub, only in the initial $2.1 million has been formally approved by the board. Therefore, the funds cannot be accessed until the project scope and budgets have been approved by the board through either a budget amendment or as part of the 2027 financial planning cycle. This will leave approximately $14,800,000 unallocated. The unallocated amount can be available for future capital projects or other strategies employed in the future. So thank you. This is just our options and our recommendation, and staff are available for questions.
Thanks very much, Kelly, and we'll start with Director Jolicoeur.
Thanks, Chair. It was a really exciting time of year. Look at it. I have a few questions for clarity. One being the reserves. So all the reserves that we have are collecting interest. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So that includes the unspent that 7 million roughly Island Health for equipment.
Yes.
So that money is in the bank. We're making
all
interest
for-
on it.
yeah.
Okay. I don't see other lights, Chair. If I
Carry
can go
on.
with the second question. And you spoke about it just in your second to last slide around the allocated funding for the health hub and the long-term care facility. And so given where we are with those two projects, the money that we have assigned in the budget is also making interest?
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Director. I will note that Jesse Tarbottom from Island Health has joined in online and is available in relation to questions regarding capital and such. Director Arbor.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I realize it's the last day on the budget, so I don't want to hold the budget on that, but I did email the CEO earlier around my question around, I don't think we've seen a slide around long-term reserves and tax acquisition projection as part of this particular cycle, at least not the last meeting or this meeting, from what I could see. And the reason why I raised this is I'm just wondering if there was no contributions to the extra projects that we're contemplating, what that could potentially do to our reserves or to our tax requisition as part of our longer term financial plan. I realize this is a very last minute request, but if staff can comment at all on whether they have that information or some context around that, that would be helpful for me for sure.
Over to CAO.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for the question. One piece I will note is, and I think Kelly will be able to provide a bit more context around this. There has been information presented over some of the past meetings, but we can certainly flesh that out for you here today. One of the big considerations here is that we are still paying down the long-term debt from the North Island Hospitals project, and until that expires, that is a substantive expenditure that we must always keep in mind. And then with respect to those reserves that are accumulating interest, that's a positive. But with respect to those reserves, I think the hospital board has always understood there will be capital requirements coming down the line, possibly both for long-term care and a hub project, but absolutely for acute care facilities as well. We know that that's an ongoing demand as equipment and facilities age. So Kelly, did you want to, I don't know if that was enough, Director Arbor, or Kelly, if you've got some more context around the question.
Sure. I think the only thing that really we can add is that James is absolutely correct. The majority of the requisition, the 12.6 million, goes to pay 10 million of it directly goes to pay for the North Island Hospital projects. And they are not complete until 2028. So if we were to divert reserve funding to pay down the debt, then that does really deplete our reserves quite quickly, even though it looks like we have lots of money. Without having that $10 million annually in it to pay for the debt, then we would be depleting them very quickly. The long-term reserve balances, there was a report in October, I believe it was, where we provided that detail. I don't know if we have time to pull up that. There was a presentation with it. I could probably find it and send it to you if you wanted to just hang on for 30 seconds.
30.
Sorry.
Chair, the information was sufficient for me in that what I heard is that 10 million is tied to our two hospital and 2.6 million of the requisition is kind of tied to other projects and reserve accumulation is basically.
Yeah, thanks, Director Arbor, and thanks, Kelly. That's a helpful reminder that we're still paying off the two hospitals, and those who've been around longer than I have will recall that it was the healthy reserve position of the hospital board that helped to fund those hospitals in the first place. So any further questions or comments from board members? Director Sinnott.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'm going to take on the role of Director Lanyon when he shows up from time to time and have sort of a conceptual idea of what we do when we collect reserves. And then we have inflationary costs for the cost of capital in the future outstripping our ability to earn interest on those reserves is actually a detriment to taxpayers. So you have to be very careful in different environments to know how much you're taking for reserves. And I think we were having conversations about how much we have in reserves. And I was just looking at the principal and the interest payments are about 10 million. It shows it going out to 2028. Is that then a renewal? And how much is left owing in 2028 on our capital for the hospitals?
Nothing.
Nothing, we're paid
So
off.
the debt is fully paid off. in
So we
2028.
technically, our reserves right now at about, what is it, 30 million? Is that what we're looking, 32 million? If we decided to reallocate them, we could completely pay off the debt and reduce taxation. We're almost at that point. Is that correct?
No,
Okay,
Not quite.
what's the
It's-
deficit amount then?
it's not 100% correct. So out of the reserves, out of the 32 million that we have sitting in there, 10 million of it belongs to Island Health for previous financial plans that are allocated within it. So although the 17 million that we show there is allocated, 9 million of it includes the health hub and the long-term care bed. So that can be reallocated. There's no formal hold on that money other than what has been approved by the board through previous financial plans. So in reality, that there's about $25 million that would be available.
So we're paying about 10 million and we've got 2 more years.
Yes.
So we're close to, that's my point, is we're very close to being debt-free. And then having more options in terms of considering our future. I think that's going to be good for future debate that we're going to have. I think it's like a pat on the back. I mean, you've done a good job. So congratulations to everyone around the board that we're in a position. I think that we have some options. I think that's about all I need to know. Thanks.
Well, I think all the members of the board will gratefully accept your pat on the back. Director Vonish.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the report and also appreciate the financial position that we are in with 14.8 million in unallocated reserves. Given the circumstances of the long-term care facility in Campbell River being deferred to an unknown timeline and along with 6 other long-term care facilities across the province who are all going to be writing letters and saying build our hospital. I would like to make a motion to move 5 million from that 14.8 of unallocated reserves into allocated reserves as part of our offer in return to the province to try and get us to the top of the list of getting our long-term care facility in Campbell River built.
We are on receipt right now of the budget report.
Yeah, upon receipt.
So if you can hold that off for a moment, Director Vonish, we'll dispense with receipt, and then we shall move into our the opportunity to entertain your motion.
Thank you.
Is there any further question or comment related to the budget report?
Can I make one comment? Just building on Director Sinnott's pat on the back. I reflect on before the North Island Hospitals projects actually started construction. We were in a bit of a holding pattern at that time, waiting for the project to proceed. And at the time, the hospital board set a target tax rate of 82 cents a thousand, so that we could contribute, so that we could build up revenues to be available to contribute towards the project as a down payment, so that we would have to borrow less. And I forget exactly how much we had in the bank at the time, but we were able to put a substantive amount. Director Grieve says almost $60 million. We'd want to double check that. But it was a substantive amount and we had to borrow a lot less, which saved, I forget, there was a report that talked about how much we actually did save in the borrowing costs over the length of the term. And as such, we're 2 years away from having that debt paid out. And I'll note that the current residential rate that the board is sitting at, tax rate, is at 24 cents, just over 24 cents a thousand, compared to that target rate of 82 cents a thousand 15 plus years ago. So just some reflection.
Thanks for that. All right, seeing no further comments or questions, thanks very much, Kelly. Is there anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. We do have the recommendation that the budget be adopted as presented. Moved and seconded. Director Vonish, if you wanted to make your motion as an amendment, that would be in order. I don't know if you've had cause to reconsider or not, but I'll give you that opportunity to speak again if you like.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think given our financial situation, we are sitting in a good spot. Our long-term debt is going to be paid in 2028. We're sitting with 14.8 in unallocated reserves. We're faced with the reality that our long-term care facility in Campbell River is being deferred, along with 6 other facilities. All of those facilities and the boards connected to them are going to be contacting the province saying, "Hey, please reconsider." And I think it's worthwhile with us coming to that table with something in our hands to offer to the project to move forward. So I would move that we move $5 million from our unallocated reserves to allocated reserves, and incorporate that as in our correspondence to the province in reaction to the deferral of the long-term care facility in Campbell River.
And that would be an amendment to the adoption of the budget, the recommended budget. Is there a seconder for that? There is no seconder. The motion fails for lack of a seconder. All right. Any further discussion on the recommendation? Is there anyone opposed to the adoption of the recommended budget? That motion is passed. Thanks very much, directors. And item number 2 is our resolution status reports. Moved by Grant, seconded by Nicol. Any questions or comments? Anyone opposed to receipt? That is carried. Into bylaws and resolutions for first, second, and third reading. We have the recommendation bylaw number 308, annual budget bylaw. First and second reading, actually. Moved by Grant, seconded by Morin. Questions or comments? Anyone opposed to first and second reading? That's carried. Moved by Grieve, seconded by Grant. Any discussion? Anyone opposed to third? Oh, Director Sinnott.
Yeah, I think we're going to have some discussion about how we're going to approach the ministry and discussions about whether we meet as they recommended with different officials, and whether or not we want to go as far as third reading at this point or leave for some room, or at least wait till final adoption. I just want to get some direction from staff and how they see potentially opening up their best hand for advocacy.
I think if you're making reference to the correspondence from Chair Hillian later on the agenda, the advocacy towards continuing on the path for long-term care in Campbell River.
Yeah, or any other strategic motions that may come as a result of the changing landscape in terms of provision of services.
Yeah, I think, I would suggest that from an advocacy perspective, approaching the minister, approaching the premier, and really imploring upon them the importance of the long-term care facility for the North Island, the state of that project in terms of where it's at and how readily it could be continued on, and we could see construction. We understand there's good collaboration with Island Health and City of Campbell River. So I think imploring upon the minister and the premier in that regard would certainly be some strong advocacy. Your financial plan here today provides for the opportunities to undertake that work as planned. As noted, you've got some unallocated reserves that could then in future be brought into the equation if that is what you want to do. And that wouldn't have to be something done before the adoption of the budget. That could be done mid-year after some engagement with the ministry, with the province. So I would suggest a well-worded letter that conveys the board's interests around the importance of the Campbell River long-term care facility. And then we would look to report back to the board, and you'd have options in front of you at that point.
And Director Sinnott.
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm also considering whether we may want to ensure we have sufficient funds in the currently projected budget to consider other options if we do not get positive feedback. And do we have enough flexibility, like either do an amendment to the financial plan to then redirect the resources in ways that both benefit our taxpayers overall, either and divert projects maybe back to the SRD and the CVRD individually to achieve the actual health outcomes for the region. And maybe the taxation is not through this particular board, it's through different entities to actually result in services required.
I think from the hospital district board's perspective, you're setting a tax rate that would be consistent with previous years and provides those opportunities and that flexibility for this hospital board. And until the board's been able to consider, a response from the province and just more opportunities, I don't know that there would be staff would be recommending any changes to the budget at this time.
Thanks for that, Director Merwini.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate this conversation. I would offer that voting on third reading at this time would indicate to the province that we as a board are very serious about moving forward with the long-term care and that we still have it in our budget and that we do want to proceed with it. So I am in favor of moving forward. Thanks.
Thanks for that. Don't see any other speakers, so we'll vote. Is anyone opposed to third reading? That is carried. And we have a recommendation that bylaw number 309, capital expenditure bylaw, be given first and second readings. Moved by Grant, seconded by Nicol. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Moved by Grieve, seconded by Grant. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That is carried. And under new business, we have correspondence dated February 20th. Receipt moved by Grant, seconded by Nicol. And we'll move into some discussion. And just as a prelude, since it's my letter. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at it. It doesn't necessarily have to stand as stated, but I felt very strongly that the amount of time, commitment, and the pressing need for this facility demanded that we not sit idly by and accept this decision. It's my belief that we should push back as vigorously as we can. Certainly respectfully, and I think a first step is in the requested action that we see here, and I'd be very welcome of any views that board members have and this and any other actions that we might take to advance this much needed project. And we'll start with Director Arbour.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, for taking the initiative with this letter. I think it's very appropriate regarding the uncertainty around the long-term care facility in Campbell River. I thought the many elements in your letter were quite good, refreshing the province about our longstanding commitment and partnership on it, some of the history, the advocacy that we've done, and the planning, the shared planning that's been done between Island Health and ourselves. The only element I would like, and I don't know if this would be as a further that in a motion, but I think that with the province, I'm having a hard time finding a better word than waffling on this initiative, along with the other long-term care facilities. Yes, they need a push, but they should also realize that a lot has been invested in time and energy by the various parties, and we need to get going. This project should be moving to construction. So I was going to propose that the letter also includes, and I sent some words to staff for that via email, that the Comox Strathcona Hospital Board may reconsider its commitment to allocate $53.6 million toward the project should confirmation not be received within 3 months that construction is proceeding. And I think, it's fine for us to allocate significant, like millions of dollars to a project, but when a partner waffle, they also need to know that we could do other things on our own, as Director Sinnott mentioned. So yeah, that would be maybe an amendment to the proposed action, or I'll leave you at your discretion. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that suggestion. My own view is that it would be important for the province to know that we have members of our board who are proposing that if there isn't a firm commitment within a short timeline, that we walk away from our financial commitment. I would see that as something that would come up in any discussion we would have without actually adopting that as a firm position. It's my belief that it's better to hold those types of things in as possibilities as opposed to declaring them out front. But I appreciate others may have different views. Director, who's next here? Oh, Director Grant.
I'm stuck down in the end here. Yeah, no, it's a good letter and I like it. And I think that the idea that you have here is good. I'm wondering, I look at the province and they're in crisis mode. You're not going to get rational decisions out of them at this point. They're trying to figure out how they're going to pay tomorrow's bills. So I wonder if maybe sending the letter and also having a delegation go down and sit in front of them. It's much harder to say no to people sitting in front of you than it is to throw a letter in a bin. So I would suggest that we maybe get our chair and someone from Campbell River to go down and meet with, or have them come here and meet with Minister Osborne and whoever else would be appropriate to have a frank discussion with them.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. I don't know that Minister Osborne is the decision maker in this situation, nor the Minister of Infrastructure, both of whom we actually met with over the phone in December when they assured us that the project was going ahead. So I think we're talking about Treasury Board, the Ministry of Finance, and the Premier's office on this one. Director Jolicoeur.
Yeah, I agree with those last statements for sure and support the delegation. And I support the request for a letter. I think for me, just my comments on this more broadly, I agree with everything you've stated in your letter to the board, Mr. Chair. But I think one of the interesting pieces here is that our communities have maybe some excitedly, others with some resistance to the province's mandate and policies around growth in our communities. I think about the endless legislations around housing that have in many ways advanced opportunities for increased growth in our communities. And as a result, that increased growth puts pressures on many of our public amenities and public services. And so when I think about particularly North Vancouver Island and this project and what this project will mean for residents of Campbell River and the North Island, many of whom also are from rural, remote, Indigenous communities, this has a huge impact on, I think, the province's desire to be equitable in its allocation of public services. And so, yeah, I think that that's the other side of this, is that, as local governments, we've been playing ball with the province around trying to meet their things like their housing targets and advancing other provincial initiatives, while also struggling to meet the needs of residents, especially, a lot of young families moving to the North Island, and with young families often comes elders to be part of the family. And so, how are we supporting folks who are choosing to live in Campbell River and the North Island when we don't have the services for them? So I think that the growth perspective to this issue is also really important, and I fully support us moving forward with the letter. Thanks.
Any further comments? There's been a couple of suggestions that we move towards a request for a meeting. And we could either add that to the requested action, or we could cover that as a separate motion, with whatever your preference is. In any case, we are in receipt and we'll dispense with that. Anyone opposed to receipt of the correspondence? That's carried, and we have the requested action.
I'll move that. I'll second.
Okay, the requested action has been moved and seconded. Is the board content with it as it is, or do you want to add something with regards to? Okay, I need someone to actually put their mic on and make that proposal. Director Grief.
Yes, yeah, and further that we proceed with request to the Treasury Board to, I guess it should go right to the top, right? So the Treasury Board to request an in-person meeting
Why don't we just leave it with the Premier?
with the Premier, okay?
Yeah. All right, so you're proposing an amendment that the board chair write to Premier David Eby requesting reconsideration and reversal of the decision to defer the Campbell River Long-Term Care Project and requesting an in-person meeting to discuss this request.
I'll second.
That's an official amendment proposed by Director Grieve, seconded by Director Grant. We'll just allow our staff to do the composition here for all to see. All right, there it is, as composed by Lisa. Thanks very much. I think that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any comments on the amendment? Director Grieve? Whoop. Oh, sorry. We'll go with Director Sinnott first.
I just want to make sure that some of our other commentary are comfortable carrying forward, that there's board consideration of changing the funding model. And if I could get some assistance from staff, perhaps next meeting, I'll put a notice of motion to have a reconsideration of the funding model. So at least you have something coming forward on the agenda so you can refer to.
Fair enough. Thanks. And Director Grieve.
Precisely what I was thinking, that the fact that we need is something in our hip pocket when we go there, because then we have that to lay out saying, well, you know, we do have this money to contribute towards this project, and we can, you know, we can either move forward or we can withhold those funds.
I think a notice of motion would be quite appropriate in that regard. Yeah. Further discussion?
Just in hearing this discussion, I think one of the takeaways for us in preparing this letter, and then if there's a delegation, will just be to put together a chronology of the long-term care discussions at the hospital board, as well as commitments that we've made to date, expenditures made to date, and provide that in a briefing note fashion. And we could also make that available to the board at a subsequent meeting.
Right, and you know, this we're doing this in an open session. I know that there's community advocates who will be watching and aware of this. I'm sure that we'll hear from the press in regards to this, and I think that that's all appropriate in terms of letting the province know that our community is, our North Island community is very concerned about this reversal, and that we intend to push back. All right, Director Bonish.
Thank you, Chair. I certainly support this motion. I support writing a letter and having a meeting. I just want to reiterate that every other facility is going to be doing this exact same thing. And, you know, although I think it's worthwhile doing, I don't think it's going to have the impact that we want, and that if we're going to stand out from the other long-term care facilities that funding has been deferred, that we come to the table as a more willing partner. But you know, I support this motion, and I'm just interested in getting this long-term care facility built, not to turn it into a fight with the province. Thanks.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate your comments. I am of the view that us coming to the table with more money doesn't necessarily change the decision. But if we are successful in gaining a meeting and we find out that that might make a difference, then that's certainly something that we can discuss. But recognizing that there's not necessarily unanimity on the board in regards to that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. All right. Anyone opposed to the amendment? That is carried, and the full motion as amended. Any further discussion? Is anyone opposed? That is carried. And that brings us to the end of our agenda today. And I'll take a motion to adjourn. All in favor? That is carried. Thanks very much, directors. I very much appreciate your participation today. And thanks, Jesse, for being with us. We let you off the hook with any questions today.